Throughout 2015, the National Cotton Council's activities were focused on effective farm law implementation while managing numerous trade and regulatory issues. The Council worked to convince policymakers that the Stacked Income Protection Plan's provisions must be implemented with the 2015 crop, with key improvements for 2016. On the trade front, the Council worked closely with the National Council of Textile Organizations to defeat amendments of concern to the cotton and textile industries during congressional consideration of Trade Promotion Authority. The Council was active on numerous regulatory issues ranging from the critical Waters of the U.S. rule to fuel spill prevention and food labeling. Throughout 2015, the Council worked to ensure crop insurance and other farm policy elements were not undermined during the Agricultural Act of 2014's implementation. Those persistent efforts began early in the year when the Council joined 30 other agriculture, insurance, and lending groups on a letter to the House and Senate Budget Committees opposing the cuts to crop insurance that were included in the President's budget. The House and Senate eventually passed the Bipartisan Budget Act. However, passage was not certain until both House and Senate leaders pledged to restore cuts to crop insurance that were included in the bill. Early in 2015, Council Director Ronnie Lee relayed industry concerns about actions and statements focused on eliminating key crop insurance tools during his testimony before the Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee.
We appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments on the importance of maintaining the 2014 Farm Bill and the Federal Crop Insurance Act with no further budget reduction. It would be highly disruptive to make adverse policy changes and budget reductions at this time.
The Council addressed another major farm policy matter when it conducted a review and analysis of the Farm Service Agency's actively engaged proposed rule. Late in the year, the Council pursued a cottonseed policy. Support was sought by securing as many signatures as possible on a letter that House Agriculture Committee Chairman Mike Conaway and Ranking Member Colin Peterson circulated to their House colleagues across the Cotton Belt. The letter to Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack urged him to take all policy actions available to provide assistance to the U.S. cotton industry, and specifically called for USDA to utilize its existing authority in the 2014 Farm Law to designate cottonseed as an other oilseed.
We understand the significant request represented by the proposal, but we believe the current economic conditions requires immediate action. Support provided by a cottonseed program should be viewed in the same manner as other farm program spending, which is an investment in not only production agriculture, but the rural economy.
That effort was reinforced by Council Vice Chairman Shane Stevens, joined by a group of producer leaders and a West Texas banker who outlined numerous market, policy, and regulatory issues that threaten to undermine U.S. cotton's health at a Stress in Cotton Country hearing. In testimony before the House Agriculture Committee's General Farm Commodities and Risk Management Subcommittee, they stated that assistance by Congress and the administration are crucial if the industry is going to weather the current economic and regulatory climate.
Losses in cotton area translate into pressure on associated businesses, infrastructure, and rural economies. Research has affirmed the multiplier effects on rural economies when cotton acres decline. A thriving cotton industry is critical to the success of many local economies.
If some stabilizing policy is not implemented very soon, cotton acres are likely to continue their decline to the point that the remaining infrastructure cannot survive.
Texas is also the largest cotton-producing state in the nation, claiming 55% of total acreage. I cite these statistics to underscore the economic toll on Texas when the cotton industry is in the tank. The financial situation is deteriorated with crop prices falling sharply and input costs rising. For Texas, the current marketing conditions compound an already difficult situation brought about by a series of natural disasters.
My state and farm recently endured the wrath of Mother Nature in the form of historic rains and floods. Crop insurance has been there to help us when we needed it. The Agriculture Committee and others have worked to strengthen and enhance the role of crop insurance to respond to weather-related disasters since congressional approval of ad hoc disaster assistance has become much more difficult in recent years. Yet crop insurance alone is not equipped to address long-term price declines as currently being experienced in the cotton industry.
The current water situation in California is a result of both the prolonged drought as well as misguided and inflexible regulatory constraints. We must manage water to meet all needs, but in a manner that shares the pain and does not create winners and losers. We have lost sight of the goals and purposes of the federal water projects were originally built to serve.
If insurance premiums increase so that producers are not able to afford insurance, we will not be able to provide financing. As you have heard from others, the addition of a cottonseed support policy will be important to ensure continued economic activity in rural areas. A cottonseed support policy will help alleviate the increasing financial stress within the cotton industry and allow for continued credit availability.
The Council submitted testimony through identical letters to the House and Senate Agricultural Appropriations Subcommittees in support of the U.S. cotton industry's FY16 funding priorities, including USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service for conducting boll weevil and pink bollworm eradication activities, Agricultural Research Service to fully operate the 3 Jennings laboratories and to continue agronomic, post-harvest, fiber quality, and textile research, and Market Access Program and Foreign Market Development Program for export market promotion activities. The Council and other agricultural organizations and companies co-signed and submitted comments to the leadership of the House and Senate Agricultural Appropriations Subcommittees expressing support for activities in the President's fiscal year 2016 budget for honeybee research activities. The Council joined other agricultural organizations on a letter to the Senate Finance Committee leadership to comment on several tax provisions important to the agricultural industry. In addition, the Council joined with numerous agricultural, agribusiness, transportation, and other organizations in a separate letter to House members in support of an amendment to include the Port Performance Act in the bill as a means to gain visibility into how U.S. ports are operating, to identify key congestion issues, and to ensure commerce continues flowing efficiently. The Council worked with a group of 33 organizations on a letter to House Agriculture Committee members and other representatives in support of the Commodity End User Relief Act, which the House eventually passed.
Everybody uses a lot of water every day. We all rely on water, so we need to decide where we want those products to come from. Every time you eat, you're consuming water. Every time you put on your clothes, you're consuming water. We are ultimate water consumers every single day.
Council Producer Director Cannon Michael, a California producer, testified before the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources regarding the severe drought and water shortages in his state and the impact on his farming operation. Later, the House approved the Western Water and American Food Security Act. Joining with the North Carolina Cotton Producers Association, South Carolina Cotton Board, and Southern Cotton Growers, the Council co-signed a letter to the RMA asking it to implement emergency loss adjustment procedures to help expedite the claim process for producers affected by late summer, early fall floods and excessive rains in the Southeast. In the trade arena, Council efforts included ensuring that any Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, agreement would not undermine the U.S. textile industry and a hemispheric textile trading partnership that is currently in place between the United States and countries within the Western Hemisphere. Prior to the Senate Finance Committee approving Trade Promotion Authority, or TPA, the Council, working closely with the National Council of Textile Organizations, communicated to that committee's Cotton Belt members and urged them to oppose any damaging amendments. The Council, along with other agricultural industry groups, sent a letter to President Obama expressing the need for his continued engagement with China's President Xi Jinping on agricultural innovation and trade. Prior to House passage of a reactivation of the Export-Import Bank, the Council joined with AMCOT, the American Cotton Shippers Association, and the National Council of Textile Organizations on a letter to all Cotton Belt House members urging reauthorization support. In testimony before the House Agriculture Committee, Council President and CEO Gary Adams conveyed the organization's opposition to any efforts that would further limit U.S. cotton policy and the World Trade Organization's December ministerial in Nairobi, Kenya.
We believe that the actions already taken by the United States with respect to cotton policy should be more than sufficient to allow U.S. negotiators to resist any further calls for concessions on cotton.
Earlier, Council staff met with Turkey's Ministry of Economy case handlers, U.S. Embassy officials, and Turkish textile groups in efforts to bring an end to the Turkish anti-dumping investigation of U.S. cotton exports to that country. In conjunction with the American Cotton Shippers Association and AMCOT, the Council also remained engaged with the administration and Congress to bring about a favorable conclusion, including coordinating statements, the sharing of strategy, and the dissemination of letters. The Council signed on to numerous letters with other organizations to urge the International Longshore and Warehouse Union and Pacific Maritime Association and President Obama to swiftly conclude negotiations so that West Coast ports would resume operating at a normal schedule. The Council utilized its Cotton's Week newsletter, radio news lines, videos, its website, and columns in various trade publications for disseminating key information to its members such as farm law implementation and regulatory proposals. That included developing and posting a number of technical documents ranging from seed cotton lint contamination prevention steps to guidelines on how to properly tie down round modules for transport on flatbed trucks. The Council also updated its educational videos concerning multiple conservation practices. In mid-2015, the Council initiated a social media campaign across 4 platforms: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and podcast via YouTube. The overall goal is informing, educating, and creating positive perceptions regarding the Council and the U.S. cotton industry. The Council continued as an in-kind supporter of America's Heartland, the award-winning national television series celebrating American agriculture. The series, in its 12th season and aired on public television and the RFD TV cable and satellite channel, educates consumers about the origin of their food, fuel, and fiber. In addition, the Council continued to participate in the Farm Policy Facts Initiative, which is committed to ensuring American agriculture's long-term success by facilitating meaningful conversations with legislators and consumers about how food and fiber is produced.
Everyday farming activities in or near ephemeral drainages, ditches, or low spots could be a violation of the Clean Water Act unless a costly permit is obtained. The tens of thousands of dollars of additional costs for federal permitting of ordinary farming activities is beyond the means of most farmers and ranchers, the vast majority of whom are family-owned small businesses.
Early in 2015, Council Chairman Sledge Taylor told the House Agriculture Committee's Conservation and Forestry Subcommittee that a rule proposed by the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers to define waters of the United States, or WOTUS, under the Clean Water Act, would require costly federal permits for many commonplace and essential farming practices. After a bipartisan group of senators introduced the Federal Water Quality Protection Act, which would require EPA to withdraw its proposed WOTUS rule and rewrite the rule after consultation with stakeholders, the Council joined on to 2 letters in support of the legislation. Later in the year, the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay of the WOTUS rule, thereby preventing EPA from implementing or enforcing the rule pending further action by the court. With a broad coalition of other agricultural groups, the Council also supported legislation introduced by Representative Bob Gibbs that would prevent EPA from requiring National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits for any pesticides that are already authorized for sale, distribution, and use under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. The Council filed extensive comments to EPA's proposed rule after the agency announced the revisions to its worker protection standards, which had not been revised since 1992. The Council continued to point out the lack of scientific evidence to support claims against neonicotinoid insecticides linked to honeybee health decline, and emphasized that scientific reports acknowledge multiple factors involved in honeybee health decline. The Council continued to support state plans and believes the collaboration and cooperation of involved stakeholders allows better protection for managed bees because they allow for identification of local needs and enhanced communication between parties. The Council submitted comments to the Fish and Wildlife Service, opposing the position to list the monarch butterfly as an endangered species. Later in the year, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit issued a verdict to vacate EPA's unconditional registration of the insecticide sulfoxaflor and remanded the registration to the EPA to obtain further studies and data regarding the effects of sulfoxaflor on bees as required by EPA regulations. The Council conveyed concerns that the Court's judgment, while reflecting more of a precautionary principle of protection, omitted consideration of the benefits components of FIFRA and potentially set a precedent jeopardizing crop protection products' availability. The Council developed an educational bulletin that was distributed to the leadership of certified interest organizations representing cotton shippers, marketing cooperatives, warehousemen, and ginners to encourage industry use of the Batch 23 system. The Council mailed contamination-free cotton flyers to its producer, gin, and warehouse leadership to ensure that growers and all gin employees were aware of their responsibilities in preventing contamination. The Council's Quality Task Force also was re-established to monitor ongoing quality issues and stay abreast of contamination incident reports. Throughout 2015, Cotton Council International promoted U.S. cotton through a supply push, demand pull strategy to 4 major segments: yarn spinners, fabric garment manufacturers, brands and retailers, and consumers. In that effort, CCI utilized its Cotton USA trademark to distinguish those retail products containing a U.S. cotton majority. CCI conducted multimedia advertising in large consumer markets in Europe, Asia, and Latin America for brands, retailers, and consumers. U.S. raw cotton's visibility in the world marketplace was increased when CCI granted licenses to several U.S. bale packaging firms to imprint the Cotton USA logo on their packaging materials for use on bales produced during the 2015-16 season. CCI's many other dynamic activities this past year ranged from a new global Cotton USA advertising campaign to another successful orientation tour. The campaign slogan, "I Love My Cotton," encouraged consumers and brands alike to connect with the campaign and inspires them to share their own reasons for loving cotton. During CCI's annual Cotton USA Cotton Days in Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and Thailand, celebrities, fashion designers, musicians, and consumers gathered across Asia to celebrate their shared love of U.S. cotton. CCI also carried out other successful Cotton USA supply chain program events in 2015 to facilitate business relationships and information exchange between the U.S. cotton-rich textile industry and garment manufacturing companies and global brands and retailers worldwide. The Cotton Foundation, supported by 55 allied agribusiness members, funded 20 general research projects totaling $320,000 for 2015-16. Approved projects include studies related to pest management, sustainability, pollinator protection, fiber quality, agronomic practices, and education. As a founding member, the Foundation continued to support Cotton Leads, a Foundation special project aimed at raising awareness of the responsible growing practices among U.S. and Australian cotton producers. Through the Foundation, support was also maintained for vital Council communications vehicles, including the Cotton's Week newsletter. The Foundation's underpinning of the Council's web server made it possible for the Council to post multiple cotton-related educational materials, including streaming video. Pending legislation, trade policy, environmental, economic, and regulatory issues will remain priorities and challenges for this industry. The Council staff and leadership will work together to actively manage the many challenges that face the industry in the months to come. Strong industry participation in the organization and politically active industry leaders will continue to be needed in order to assure future success for U.S. cotton.